At the beginning of the pandemic, we were listed as clinically extremely vulnerable, and we were told to shield. This was a very difficult time. I decided that a positive approach might be to make a series of artworks that responded and recorded and documented our experience during the pandemic. I resolved to make a daily artwork. Initially, I decided to start by drawing, and I started by making simple folded sketchbooks, which unfolded at the end of each day into an A2 artwork, which I could take a photograph of and post onto social media, starting to share with a community of like-minded artists. The subject matter was drawn from our daily lives and became a series of still lives of pandemic-related material, the things around our house, the garden, and our very limited world in lockdown. As I carried on with this daily practice and uploading them to social media, the drawings became increasingly complicated, and I started to work the surfaces more and more with gesso, crayon, watercolour, and they became more and more paintings and less drawings. In August I took a break and I deliberately redesigned the protocol that I was using to generate the work. I started making squares so they fitted the Instagram template, and I started making collage patchwork surfaces, completely new surfaces made out of old work, material that was in the studio, using things up, tidying up, finding good use for old things. The surfaces were made of old drawings, prints, teaching aids, teaching demonstration works, the sort of material that had accumulated over years of a teaching career. By making completely new surfaces out of old material, I worked over quite a differentiated surface with a great variety of different sorts of paper, cardboard, readily painted surfaces, and these became more and more interesting. I enjoyed the reverse side of the paintings as well as the fronts. One of my aims was to use the work to make connections with other people. I'd been picking up on what other people posted on Instagram, and one of my main collaborators, as he became in a way, was Chris Francis, who posts as Art Pedagogy on Instagram. He posted this set of instructions for a painting workshop on his Instagram, and I used these instructions to generate a series of artworks. In a way, I used his instructions on top of the set of instructions I'd already designed for the making of my own artwork. As you can see, these paintings all had common painterly elements, an element of three-dimensional illusionism, 6 spots, thick areas of paint, a drip, pattern, and so on. The question throughout this was how might it be possible to use an autoethnographic inflected creative practice as a way of documenting and reflecting on the pandemic experience from our particular viewpoint in a rural town in Suffolk, UK. I wanted to think about how to use creative practice to research something that is happening quite slowly, a change of consciousness which we may not understand until much later. How can we create documents and artworks that can track incremental shifts and provide some sort of map? I also wanted to use the isolation time to develop my art practice away from an immediate postdoctoral phase towards a new way of working for myself. This involved me being quite brutal with my own practice and using the influence of others in quite a programmatic way. The instruction paintings developed further when Chris worked with his sixth form students to develop sets of instructions for artworks, and I responded to these that he posted on the internet as well. My favourite was this very simple one. You will need something, anything, do anything for 45 minutes, produce something, explain something about your anything, or anything about your something. For Christmas, Chris instigated abstract advent, and quite a lot of artists took a shape each day and made an artwork. I added the shapes day by day using stencils to create increasingly complicated paintings, which culminated in some very dense images for Christmas itself. The collages represent a new patchwork surface, rematted from the old materials, and then worked over, obliterated, or extended with new painting, colour, and further collage. These palimpsests represent coming to terms with leaving classroom teaching, a dialogue with the past while seeking a renewal through creative reuse. I learnt and relearnt about colour and marks, forgetting teaching, and recalling different forms of practice through the daily work. Central to each artwork is an active depictive drawing, a daily engagement with observing an external reality. The subject matter has reduced to a small cast of tabletop objects, which endlessly recur in a visual representation of the limited routines of lockdown life. The autoethnography is not just in the narrative of the imagery, but is embedded in the materiality of the work, in the chopping, gluing, editing, recycling, and reworking. The paintings mirror the distorted attention span of lockdown life, constructed each day from fragments and leftovers. The ideas, influences, enthusiasms, obsessions, colours, and collage detritus sweep through the online grids of images and track gradual changes within the limited subject matter. The works represent a sort of mindfulness practice, an engaged distraction, keeping busy with a creative project, making meaning making within the limited options available. The titles form a concrete poem of lockdown concerns. If they are ever exhibited in a real space, if that's ever possible, then the titles will form a concrete poem in the catalogue. I carried on making the paintings over the spring and summer of this year. There are now over 300 of these square paintings. I've also kept a comprehensive journal about making the paintings and about the pandemic, which represents another level of autoethnographic inquiry in this project. By the end of this summer, the project was coming to a natural pause. And in August, I took a break from making the paintings. Making this film has made me re-evaluate the work and made me think that I should get back to it. The significant thing, perhaps, is to attempt to make a record of these very, very difficult times in whatever way is available to you. Do what you can with what you have, where you are. I can see now a way of going back, starting somewhere in a slightly different place to go on for a third phase of this project, which hopefully will see me to the end of the pandemic and some way out of the other side. At the moment, this pile is accumulating in the corner of the studio, waiting for their release into an exhibition in the outside world. Thank you for viewing this presentation. The work can be seen on my blog and on Instagram, and I can be contacted via my email.